All right, so we are live, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science to people around the world. And so we know that classes aren't in session right now, so we really appreciate you tuning in from home on YouTube. Again, this is one of about 5 sessions we've done in the last week and a bit with Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in the heart of downtown Toronto. So we appreciate you tuning in and encourage you to check out all our past videos with them too. So we bring epic scientists, explorers, and facilities to you guys, all for free, no registration or sign up required. If you're here, you know that, but please do spread the word for us. And so today, again, heart of downtown Toronto, we are with Duncan, who is an educator at the aquarium, and we're going to be doing a sawfish and nurse shark feeding today. Now, the people that are supposed to be doing the feeding aren't quite out there yet with Duncan, so he's going to tell us a little bit about the aquarium itself, about what happens during the feeding, and hopefully we get some live animals coming up soon to greet you guys and say hello. But without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Duncan, and take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So here at Ripley's Aquarium of Canada, even though we are closed to the public right now, animal care still needs to happen. So I'm here at our Dangerous Lagoon exhibit. It is our biggest exhibit. So there's almost 3 million liters of water in here. So that's about 750,000 gallons. So it's a huge tank. We've got all sorts of animals in here. And even though we call it the Dangerous Lagoon, it's not that dangerous. We have divers who are in here all the time. There's actually a group of divers who will probably be in here right after we finish today. But today we are going to be seeing some feeding for two types of animals that live in the tank, our nurse sharks and our sawfish. The feeding for this tank, the animals are target trained. So they will come right to a target to get their food. And that's part of the enrichment we do with a few of our animals here, especially the bigger ones like sharks and sawfish. And the target training lets us get nice and close to the animals because they'll come right up for their food. There's a sawfish there. And especially for a tank like this where we have lots of different animals living together, it's a good way to spread the animals out, make sure that all of them are getting the food they need. And especially if there's medicine or vitamins that are going out as well, helps us make sure that each animal is getting their own amount, getting the right amount of food. So you can see the sawfish over here, coming right to the pole. So the sawfish is our biggest animal here. We have two of them. So these are a green sawfish. It's one of 5 different sawfish species. So our biggest one is our female, and she's about 14 feet long. Then we have a smaller male sawfish as well, and I think he's more like 11 or 12 feet long. There he is right there coming around. And even though sawfish are quite long and they look a lot like sharks, they are actually in the ray family. So if you were to look at these animals from the bottom, underneath you can see it a lot more. They look like stingrays. They have their flat bottoms, they have their mouth and their gills down there as well. And just like a lot of stingrays, sawfish will actually hunt from the bottom. So their mouths, they have pretty flat teeth, and they'll eat small fish, shellfish, clams, things that they find in the bottom. And for such a big animal, they actually live in pretty shallow water. So in the wild, you would find sawfish in water maybe 30 feet deep, but they can come quite shallow as well. So these sawfish out in the world, you would find them probably around northern Australia, maybe up around Indonesia, elsewhere in the Indo-Pacific. But sawfish are actually pretty endangered. So these green sawfish here are listed as critically endangered by the IUCN. So it's part of why it's so important for us to have them in aquariums like this, so we can get a better appreciation of these animals, teach people more about them, and hopefully get them the protection they need. So you might have been able to see there, sawfish can be pretty messy eaters. Even though they're big, they'll eat their food whole. So they'll suck in the whole animal. They might have to spit it out and suck it back in a few times. But because they eat their prey whole, it does mean that even though they're huge, people don't really have anything to worry about from sawfish. They're way too big to be swallowed in one gulp. Their mouths are not that big. So even though they can be kind of intimidating looking, sawfish and people, not too much to worry about, but you've probably noticed they do have that big thing coming out of their face. So that's called a rostrum. That's where the saw in sawfish comes from. So the rostrum has a bunch of what are called rostral teeth, those spikes coming out the sides of it. And those will help the sawfish catch their prey. So they'll use their rostrum, that big saw, to knock their prey out or incapacitate it and stun it to make it easier to catch, and sometimes to trap them against the bottom of the ocean as well. So while the sawfish is eating, I might bring us over to our nurse sharks who are eating right now as well. And our nurse sharks also come to a target. They've got, see if we can see it here, a nice big target. So we have 3 nurse sharks in the tank. They are all males. Oh, look at that. So they're eating some, looks like little capelin today, little fish. Wow. So in the wild, nurse sharks will hunt at night, and they'll kind of hunt on their own, solitary. And then during the day, nurse sharks tend to rest, and they will all rest together. They'll kind of pile up in big groups. And we actually see that here with our 3 nurse sharks. If you come here, you'll often see them lying on top of our tunnel or elsewhere in this tank, and they're all just kind of lying on top of each other. Oh, they seem to really love this fish. That's awesome. So nurse sharks, even though they have a reputation for being gentle, they can actually be bigger than you might expect. So up to 10 or 15 feet. And nurse sharks live in pretty warm water, so you could find nurse sharks on the east coast of North or South America, closer to the equator, on the west coast as well in the Pacific Ocean. You could also find nurse sharks around Europe and Africa, again, in warm water, close to the equator. So a few different places around the world. So coming right to that target there. So you might notice that even though, so our nurse sharks are eating over here, our sawfish is eating at the other side of the tank over there. We have other big animals in here, like our sand tiger sharks and our sandbar sharks, and they're kind of minding their own business. And that's because those animals are also target trained, so they know this is not their target, but they also ate yesterday. So those sharks are on a different schedule, and they stick to that routine pretty well. So the fish that these animals are eating, so the fish over here, the sawfish were eating some squid, I believe, all comes to our aquarium frozen. It's restaurant quality seafood. And we go through about 800 pounds of that food every week. And most of it is for this tank because we have a lot of big animals in here to feed, and we want to make sure they're all healthy and growing properly. Look at that, very cool. Oh, and here comes one of our sawfish as well. Awesome. So nurse sharks, you're kind of hearing that big noise here, and that makes sense because nurse sharks, when they eat, they have really, really powerful suction on their mouths. So that's kind of how they'll find food in the wild, is they'll start sucking around, searching through the bottom of the ocean with really, really powerful suction. I don't know if this is coming through, but if you get a good view of their mouths, they have 2 little barbells there that are kind of like whiskers, and those help them find their prey as well. They're kind of helping them taste a little bit. But another way that sharks and stingrays and animals of that kind are able to, another thing they can use to help them find their prey is a sense that we don't have at all called electroreception. So on the sawfish, all over their rostrum, let's see if they'll come over here. They have little spots, little pores where they're feeling electricity, which can be really helpful for them because they live in such shallow water, help find prey that's hiding in the sand, or if they've dug up a lot of sand and the water's kind of cloudy and murky, they can still find their prey. Oh, we've got one of our sandbar sharks just hanging out over here. But electroreception is really, really cool. So they're feeling electricity. And if you think about where electricity is coming from in living things, it's coming from heartbeats, from muscles moving. It looks like some of our other fish are getting a treat here. That big fish out there, it's kind of silvery looking, that's called a tarpon. So we've got a few of those big fish in here. Getting a little squid for them as well. So while our feeding has been happening over here, some of our other aquarists have been on the other side of the tank, and they're tossing in all sorts of little pieces of food as well. Just like I said, there's a whole bunch of different animals living in this tank, and we really do want to spread them out so we can get a good eye on who's eating what. our nurse sharks are not done yet. So I'm sure at this point, a lot of you have some questions. So if I could get those from Jesse, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Duncan. And what a great little live feeding. It's so neat seeing the sharks come right out of the water to slap the Superman symbol there. All right. We've got over 100 people tuning in from across Canada and the US. So just let me know where you're joining from. Type in questions in the YouTube chat bar, and I will take as many as I can. We are going to start with William in Ottawa, who wants to know, how do the sawfish use their saw?
Yeah, so that saw that we call a rostrum, the number one thing they do is to help them kind of stun or capture their prey. So if there's a tasty fish swimming around, they might give it a whack to knock it out and make it easier to catch. They might also use it to dig in the sand and help things that are hiding that way. But we're not super sure if that's true or not. The thing about sawfish actually is there's still a lot to learn about them. So definitely they use it mostly for hunting and sometimes to defend themselves as well. Even though they're really big, some big sharks will sometimes prey on sawfish. So for defense as well.
Very cool. If you're ever at a museum, certainly the Royal Ontario Museum, also in Toronto, has a sawfish rostrum that you can see and hold. It's quite the thing. It's like an amazing weapon that can easily be used for all sorts of neat stuff. Thanks, Duncan. All right. Rowan, who's 6, wants to know, how many sharks do you have there in the tank?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's see. So the nurse sharks, we have 3 nurse sharks. We have, I think, about 12 sand tiger sharks, and then 2 sandbar sharks that are zipping around. I think there's one way out there right now. So about 17 sharks in the tank.
Very neat. All right. Emma and Addison in Beaverton, Ontario want to know if sharks lose their teeth in the tank.
They absolutely do. Yeah, sharks are losing their teeth all the time. It helps make sure they always have the sharpest, freshest teeth ready to go. And even our nurse sharks, you probably didn't see their teeth because their teeth are really, really tiny. They're losing their teeth as well. So actually the bottom of this tank is covered in teeth. And when we have people diving in here, they'll kind of grab those teeth and build themselves little collections.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance, and when Ripley's reopens to the public, they have shark jaws that people can hold in some of their programs. You can see that there's many rows of teeth, like 6 and 7 rows of teeth in a row. They're fantastic. So really encourage you guys to check that out if you get a chance. All right, Kira in Toronto wants to know, how much does a shark eat in a day?
So when we feed sharks like this at an aquarium, we usually feed them about 1% of their body weight. So if these sharks weigh like 200 or 300 pounds, then we would feed them 2 or 3 pounds of food.
Now, you said something earlier that the other sharks aren't going to come up because they ate yesterday. Do the sharks need to eat every day, or do they only eat a few times a week?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so our big sharks, our sand tiger sharks that we're looking at right now, they actually only eat 3 times a week. So Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And then the wild, they might eat even less often than that. If they get a really big meal, they can make that last for weeks and weeks, actually.
Awesome. Thank you, Duncan. All right, we got Ethan joining us in Boston. Again, that's all he's been doing all week long is joining us. We really appreciate you being here, Ethan. He wants to know, what's the average lifespan of some of these sharks?
So a lot of the sharks in the tank, the average lifespan is somewhere around 20 or 30 years. Oh, there goes one of our tarpons. And actually with the sawfish, like I was saying, there's a lot still to learn about sawfish. Sawfish might be able to live up to 50 years.
Wow, very cool. I know too that you guys have a video in the aquarium, and this is really neat. You guys have videos of Greenland sharks. So this is the longest lived shark, over 200 years we know that they can live to. Big great whites we know can get to 70 and stuff like that. So they're some of the longest lived animals in the world, actually, which is very cool.
Yeah, I read something not too long ago about Greenland sharks living maybe even like 400, 500 years.
Crazy, eh?
Incredible,
yeah. All right, Parker and Bryce and Milton. First of all, they want to let you know, Duncan, that they remember you from a field trip they took back to Ripley. So hi from Parker and Bryce. And so they want to ask, do the sharks eat the other fish in the tank as well as those that they're fed by workers?
Oh, that's a good question. So no, they don't really eat the other fish in the tank. And there's a few reasons for that. So the fish that we're feeding these animals, like the sharks and the sawfish, they're pretty nicely prepared. So they've been cut. So some of the nasty parts, like the head and the tail, are taken away. So it's kind of nicer for the sharks to eat. But the thing with sharks and big predators is they really, really want to save as much energy as they can. So if they don't have to hunt for fish that are swimming around, they'd rather just wait for some food that's going to come right to them. Because in the wild, saving energy like that is how you survive longer.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Again, great questions, guys. We're getting them pouring in, so we appreciate that and keep sending them along. We got lots of time for more. So Deborah wants to know, do any of the sharks have egg births? And can you tell us a little bit about sharks having
Oh,
babies? Because that's a cool question.
yeah, absolutely. So the ones we were looking at today, both the sawfish and the nurse sharks, those babies will grow in eggs, but the eggs hatch while they're still inside the mother. So they'll hatch and then they'll be born live from there. Some other sharks, like hammerhead sharks, they will give fully live birth. But then other sharks as well, like maybe a bamboo shark or a little carpet shark like that, they will actually lay eggs and they'll attach their eggs onto a rock or onto the reef to keep themselves safe. So for sharks, there's a lot of variety in how they have their babies.
Yeah. I encourage everyone at home, when you're done this session, obviously stick with us for the next 20 minutes or so, but check out shark eggs online. They're some of the coolest looking things in nature. I just love them. I missed this question, so I apologize for that. Callum and Ewan in Sudbury, one of my favorite places in Canada, they want to know why they're called nurse sharks. Do you know, Duncan?
That is such a good question. And the truth is, nobody is really sure why they're called nurse sharks. So it might be because that they eat with that powerful suction that's kind of like nursing. It might be that in Old English, the word for sharks on the seabed was hearse, that I guess got turned into nurse. So there's a few different theories, but no one actually knows fully where nurse shark comes from.
All right. Thanks for the question, guys. All right. So Emily wants to know from Keswick, Ontario. A lot of Ontario. We got all of Ontario here today. I love it.
Awesome.
Emily wants to know, when the diver cleans the tank, do the sharks bug them at all or not?
No, so the sharks, a lot of the time during the day, they're resting. They're kind of asleep. So they'll drift along, kind of minding their own business. So what happens is whenever we have divers in the tank, there's one person whose job is to be the shark tender. So they're keeping their eye out for the animals in the tank. So they have a stick with them that has just some bright and dark stripes, so it's easy to see. And if a shark is coming towards them and getting too close, they'll hold the stick up, maybe wave it around a little to get that shark's attention. And that just kind of wakes the shark up and it'll turn away and keep to itself. Because for the most part, these sharks don't want to get too close to people. And then the sawfish is the other big animal that tender's looking for, because the sawfish with that big rostrum, when they swim, they'll swing that rostrum back and forth. So even though the sawfish is gentle and doesn't need anything by it, you want to stay out of the way.
Right. And this is a message we get in a lot of things when we talk about animals, is that it's not that the animal's trying to hurt you, it's that it's a large animal or it's a large predator. And so it might be surprised and do something by accident. So that's why they're always making sure that the sharks know where they are when they're in the tank. Duncan, if I'm not mistaken, can members of the public go in the tank as well as part of an experience you guys have?
Yeah, so this tank here, if you are a certified diver, then yeah, you can book an experience to swim in this tank. So it'll usually be one or two people swimming in here. You'll kind of go along the tunnel, and a lot of these animals will come right up to you. Our turtles, we have two green sea turtles in the tank that tend to be pretty curious. I've seen our smaller sandbar sharks really swim by people as well, which is quite cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Duncan. All right. We got people from Asheville, North Carolina now, too. Welcome in. It's so nice to have Asheville groups, and we have a lot of classes from there. We've never had this question before, and I like it. So Nathan from Oakville wants to know, what color are sharks' eyes?
Oh, so that's a good question. Sharks, I mean, a lot of them have quite big pupils, so a lot of the time you just see black. Definitely some of our sharks here have kind of a yellow gold kind of eyelid or iris around that. So when they close their eyes to just a slit, you kind of see more like a yellowy color.
Yeah. Again, I've never heard that before. When I think of shark's eyes, I think of black. So that's a tricky one. Try and look it up online, guys. You might get some better close-up pictures of some shark eyes, too.
Yeah.
All right. Maria wants to ask, I think you've asked questions like this before, Maria. How do sharks communicate with one another, and do they communicate with one another?
Oh, that is a great question. A lot of sharks are pretty solitary during the day, so I don't know. I'm going to say I don't know for sure. I would guess that they probably put some chemicals and pheromones into the water mostly to communicate, but that would be a really interesting question. I have to say, yeah. I don't know for sure.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard of sharks talking to one another in any sort of fashion before. I mean, most animals have chemical signaling of some point,
Yeah.
of some kind. They can sense when they want to mate. Actually, that's a good follow-up question. Do the sharks mate in the tank? Is there anything like that?
So not in our tank, no. So sometimes for some of our sand tiger sharks, we have seen some mating behavior. So it looks like they're getting ready. So for sharks, that's pretty rough. It does mean some biting and things like that. But our sharks here in this tank, we have not seen mating. We have had some of our smaller sharks, like our bamboo sharks, lay eggs that have hatched into new sharks that we have grow up here as well. Um, and as far as I know, with nurse sharks, I think there is only one aquarium in North America that's had them breeding successfully. So it can be tough to do. Some animals need just the right conditions if they're going to mate and have eggs. So it can be tricky to recreate that.
Yeah, but you guys do have a lot of babies of other kinds of sharks, some of your smaller species, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we've had bamboo sharks that have hatched. We have had they're called chain cat sharks. They're really tiny that have hatched, and swell sharks as well. So a lot of smaller kind of bottom dwelling reef sharks.
Yeah, very cool. All right, the moment you said that you need to be a certified diver to get in that tank, Maya asked, how long does it take to become a certified diver?
Oh, that's a good question. So to just have your open water diving certification, you need to take an in-class course that I believe takes a few weekends. And then you need to get some hours in the water as well. So I think it would, if you're rushing through, it would take you a few months.
Yeah. But I do want to note for any kids joining in online that you can
Yes.
be 10 years old and get your dive license. So at 10 years old, you can start on the path of becoming a diver. We had a speaker the other day who started when she was about that young. So I encourage you to do it. It's like magic to be able to breathe underwater. It's very cool. All right. Oh, Miranda from Chatham wants to know how many babies can sharks have at one time?
Oh, that's a great question. It really depends on the species. So some sharks, like the sand tiger sharks in here, they will only have one baby at a time. And for them, that's actually because the babies that they're holding will eat each other until there's only one left. But some other sharks will have a litter. So I think nurse sharks can have maybe 10 or 20 pups.
Yeah. I just want to stress this because we did a session a few months ago with a guy named Simon J. Pierce that was awesome on whale sharks. So they have the most babies of any shark. They found a pregnant one once with 360 baby whale sharks inside it. So that is the
Oh,
record to
goodness.
my knowledge of any shark in the world. All right. Ewan and Callum want to know if any of your sharks have ever jumped or leapt out of the tank. And you can answer that and then tell us a little bit about why the sharks might swim with their heads above water as well.
Oh, yeah. So the sand tiger sharks in here, they swim with their heads out. They actually are gulping down air. So it helps them float in the water, makes it easier for them to be buoyant and move around. With all that air in their bellies, the sand tiger sharks can actually burp and fart. But as to sharks jumping out, none of these sharks have jumped out. Some of our smaller sharks, we have bamboo sharks in a touch exhibit, and they can get quite active at night because they're nocturnal. So that tank we actually have to cover up with a net at night so that they don't jump out of the tank.
All right. Elise wants to know, do you name the sharks?
So the sharks do have names. I have to be honest, I have trouble telling them apart, but our aquarists who work with them are experts because these sharks have different scars and markings or freckles, things like that to look for. So our sharks do have names. And for us, that's important when we're keeping records and we want to know, is this shark eating enough food? Did this animal get the vitamins that it was supposed to get? So having some way to tell them apart can be really helpful.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. Paisley wants to know, do any of the sharks ever fight with one another?
So they can sometimes, like I was saying, especially if it gets to around mating season, which I believe is around kind of spring, getting towards summertime. The sharks can get rough with each other and they'll bite each other on the fins, which from the outside can sometimes look a little frightening, but it's important to realize that that's a normal part of the shark's life and that's a natural thing for them to be doing. And actually for us, to see normal natural behavior like that can be a good thing, a sign that these sharks are getting everything they need to feel comfortable.
Yeah, fantastic. Actually, a question we haven't got yet that I'm surprised is, can you tell male and female sharks apart from one another?
You definitely can, yeah. So for sharks, and this is true of rays as well, so the stingrays or the sawfish, the male animals, their fins on the bottom of their body towards the back, the males will have two claspers. So they're kind of a finger-shaped organ that they have two of coming out, and the females don't have those.
Right. Again, we're getting more questions that we can possibly answer in one session. So I want to wrap up by saying, Duncan, can you tell us a little bit about how kids can learn more about Ripley's Aquarium of Canada and about some of the amazing sharks just that you have and in the world in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, if you're hoping to watch more sharks, see other live things we're doing in the future, or do some activities, if you go to ripley.aquariums.com, the first thing you're going to see is a big banner for things that you can do while you're at home. So activities, like crafts, and other live videos.
All right. So I will share that in the chat bar with everyone. I also want to thank you guys so much for joining in on YouTube today. So us at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we are doing 6 to 8 sessions every single day with scientists, explorers around the world. Keep checking in on our newsletter, which I've also linked at the bottom. So for more Ripley's Aquarium sessions, more of our sessions generally, consider donating at our website and through our PayPal account to keep us doing what we do so well. And we look very forward to having you back. Duncan, this was fantastic. We really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me.
All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone, and see you all soon. Bye for now.